I recently had on Spencer Lewis, the Wetland Gypsy. And the first time I had him on, I think was in January or February. And he was really discouraged, really disillusioned with the waterfowl community. He puts a lot of content out on TikTok, Instagram. I think it goes to Facebook as well, if I'm not mistaken. And he was seeing so much negativity, so much hostility that he felt like he was just done. He felt like he was done with putting out content. He had just kind of had it. And when I had him on that episode, I remember saying this a little bit to him, but on the next episode, it's like, I don't know that he's right. I don't feel like the waterfowl community is all that toxic. I don't feel like the waterfowl community is in that bad a shape. And since that time, I started putting out a lot of reels on Instagram that also go to Facebook. So I'll post an episode like this episode is posting on a Monday, and then Monday, Tuesday, and sometimes even Wednesday, I put about a 30-second to a minute clip on Instagram. And then from there, it goes also onto Facebook. It just does it on its own. I post it to Instagram. It goes both places. And when I started doing that 4 or 5 times a week, that's when my eyes were really opened to how people are currently treating each other in the waterfowl community. And my opinion changed about the state of the waterfowl community. Then I had on Josh Goins, watched everything as it's transpiring around the flooded corn debate and adaptive harvest management. I did episodes on adaptive harvest management, and I was just stunned at the way people were behaving themselves, not just towards me, but towards each other. And so then I was like, man, the waterfowl community is in a terrible place with the infighting and the way they treat each other. And I got to thinking, I was like, well, is that really true? Or is that just the state of social media? Like, is the waterfowl hunting community any different from everything else? I really think the problem is the current structure of social media itself. And as I've been releasing more and more reels, one thing that has become apparent to me is if I want the maximum amount of views, I will post stuff that I know is going to piss people off. I will post stuff that I know is going to get people to argue. And so I've really tried hard to stay away from that. There are times that I put things on there that I think is good content that I know it might evoke some emotion in people, but I'm not putting it on Instagram or Facebook because of that reason. After I had on Josh Goins, and then I would talk about adaptive harvest management, all of that, that's when it became very apparent to me that I could really lean into posting things just as rage bait. And I made a conscious decision, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it. If I post something and it does elicit some emotion and it's a point that I think that I want out, that I want heard, then I'm going to post it. But I'm not searching and seeking out things that are going to really make people upset. So let me play for you. I want to play for you 2 contrasting reels that I have put on social media. And I want you to drive this point home of the difference between content on social media that drives a positive message and content on social media that just tries to elicit a negative response. So this first reel, I just released this last week, and this was from my interview with Spencer Lewis, the Wetland Gypsy. So let me play this reel here just for a moment.
You go and look for negativity, you're absolutely going to find it. If you're looking for wickedness in the world, you're absolutely going to find it because the world is full of it. But on the flip side of that, if you go out and look for positivity, you're going to find it. And it's like you see what you look for. And I had never really thought of it that way. So I'm thankful that it was explained to me that way. But it's kind of made a difference. It really has made a difference. Not kind of. It really has. Since then, I've kind of changed my perspective on things. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to is perspective. And, I've kind of started looking for positivity, and I've been finding it. And on that same note, I've been trying to be a more positive influence, because I think if, I'm putting out negative stuff like I was on the last podcast in that mindset, then, people are definitely going to feed off of that. But on the flip side, if I'm putting out positive stuff and encouraging stuff, then people are going to feed off of that as well.
So that particular reel was a positive message of positivity, 2.8 thousand views, 3 comments. So as far as what I put on, a complete dud, absolute dud. Now let me play for you a different reel that I put out. And this reel is about me talking about flooded corn. And again, I am not strategically putting out content to try to piss people off. These are observations that I'm making since I ramped up the number of reels that I'm putting out. So let's listen to this one now. How is flooded corn involved in what I said at all? This flooded corn thing has gotten way out of hand. If you're reading flooded corn into me talking about why the Pacific Northwest is a good flyway, dude, you got to get over yourself. This is unbelievable. I'm not like flooded corn's no problem and you guys rate it. That's not my stance. That has not been my stance. I don't know. I think there's a chance that flooded corn is contributing to the short stopping, but it just goes to show you how toxic the community has become. If you go onto Facebook and you start looking at the discourse that's going on between the anti-flooded corn and pro-flooded corn crowds, it is a mess. It is absolutely awful. We've got to lower the temperature here. We've got to lower it, because it's just the way that people are at each other's throats is just completely out of hand. And so that reel did 14.5 thousand views and got 120 comments. And a lot of the comments on that reel are people fighting with each other. And it just goes to show you, as a content creator, you are rewarded for bringing negative emotion out in people. And so when that's the reward, when the algorithm teaches a creator to piss people off and to get people fighting, that's what you're flooded. That's the kind of content that typically gets seen by more people. Only 2.8 thousand people saw the video about positivity, about bringing good things to the community. Over 14,000 people saw the video about me complaining about corn versus non-corn. And that's just one little example. And it's really, really discouraging. Luckily for us, and stick with me, I'm going to get to more waterfowl stuff in a second, but I think that this stuff is really important. Social media in and of itself is not bad. The current state of how social media functions and how the algorithms function is bad. There could be a scenario in which social media had positive effects on people and were a positive influence. But as in its current state, the way the algorithms feed us things that are going to make us feel emotion, it's a terrible state. And so the waterfowl community, I don't think, is any more toxic than any other community. If you go to fishing or whatever it is, or just browse through the comments section, especially on Facebook, the comment section on any topic, and you'll see people acting like assholes to each other. And so I don't think that the waterfowl community is like in this horrible state compared to every other community. I just think it's the state of social media. So I was looking up what are the 5 biggest negatives of social media. Number 1, addiction and excessive screen time. Platforms are designed to keep users engaged as long as possible. Mental health concerns, increased anxiety, depression, loneliness, and low self-esteem, especially among teens. Number 3, political and social polarization. Algorithms oftentimes amplify outrage, conflict, and tribal thinking. I think that's a huge one, and that really plays into what I'm talking about. Number 4, the spread of misinformation. False or misleading information can spread rapidly. And number 5, reduced attention span or productivity. Now, the good thing, on the positive note, things in America can change very rapidly. They can change quickly. I graduated high school in 1991. And in the 1990s, in my high school, it was considered really cool if you smoked cigarettes. Now, I didn't smoke cigarettes at that time, but it was considered like all of like the quote unquote cool kids smoke cigarettes. In fact, there was a student smoking section at my high school that if you had a letter signed by your parents during lunch, you could go outside in this little section and teachers and students alike would smoke cigarettes together. I got my first teaching job around 1997. And I was told, this is what I was told, is that in the early 90s, in the elementary school that I worked at, and now this was one of the most affluent counties in North America, the elementary school nurse smoked cigarettes in her office. And then what happened was in the 90s, there was some lawsuits that came down on the smoking industry. And there was this media campaign and push that was anti-smoking. And all of a sudden in 97, 98, there was campaigns coming into the elementary school, the anti-smoking, how stupid smoking was. They started making it illegal to allow smoking in restaurants. And it flipped within like a 2 or 3 year period. It went from smoking was cool to if you smoke, you're a social leper. I mean, the flip was absolutely unbelievable how quickly it changed. And there is a hope that this can happen in social media as well. Again, I don't think that social media is the problem. It's the way that social media is configured. That's the problem. It's the way the algorithms function. There are massive lawsuits right now that are coming up against a lot of the social media organizations. And we can hope and pray that through these lawsuits, we can see the same type of turnaround that went on with smoking. And the hope is that with these litigations, where they are targeting people to addict them, this generation of kids coming up are the most anxious. They're the most depressed. They're not reproducing. Do you have any idea what you have to do to humans to get them to stop reproducing? The kind of mental stress and trauma that this generation is in, that they have stopped reproducing. So hopefully, these lawsuits can be the start of a chain reaction that can flip this problem around. And hopefully we will see that. And so my overall point that I'm trying to make, my long-winded point, is that I don't think that the waterfowl community is in any kind of worse state than any other community. I think that social media breeds this problem. The algorithms breed this problem where I am penalized if I post positive content and rewarded if I post negative content. Anyway, I thought you'd find that interesting.